He made me swear never to tell those stories on recording.
All right, we're live.
All right, let's share this screen here. So we're doing something a little bit different. We're not doing slides. We're doing sort of a mind map in Mural today. So as you see on my side here, I'm Mark Kilby. I am a remote agile coach. I coach leaders, I coach teams up and down the organizational hierarchy. I'm a consultant. I am also a mentor, an author, and yes, a former rocket scientist. You can ask me about that later. So, and with that, let me turn it over to my partner, Aaron.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm Aaron Kessler. I'm a fellow product enthusiast. I love to connect other people with other mentors and other mentees. And I've had my fair share of mentoring. I'm a serial mentee, so to speak, and I've mentored a couple others as well. So excited to hop right in.
Cool. So as you see from our what we have up on the screen right now, we're going to talk about mentoring from the perspective of the mentee and the mentor. And since Curtis was kind enough to give us that poll ahead of time, and we have a lot of mentors, I might go a little bit off script a little bit because I might want to find out what the group knows about mentoring. But for now, I'm going to turn it over to Aaron to talk about what you need to do as the mentee.
Yeah. So there are a couple responsibilities as a mentee to make sure that you're getting the most from your mentor. So what I typically like to start out with is, starting with asking myself the question of what do I want to gain from mentorship? And so then I start to think about crafting a persona. We all know that buzzword in product, crafting a persona for your customers or your ideal customer, but I craft a persona for myself. What do I want to look like in 5 years, 10 years, maybe even a year or 2 years, right? And then I start to think about, okay, well, then what career path do I want to follow? When I was first getting into product, I was a developer. I had no idea about product management. And then I started to look at different, career paths that developers had taken, right? Going from either development to sales engineering or development to product management. I just knew I didn't want to be a developer anymore. And then I'll start to ask myself, okay, well, what field do I want to be in? What am I curious about learning more about? And so that's where the type of company comes into play. Do I want to learn more about fintech or healthcare? And then, you can also ask yourself what areas of product you want to focus on. If we're in product, right? We're all in product here. And so we can start to hone in on, do I want to figure out what product ops means? And so, then I start to look at people in those specific fields. And then after I've done that, then I start to craft a value proposition of how can I give my mentor value? How would I make it valuable for them to mentor me? Because, we all know mentors are very busy people. They probably have a lot of people, hitting them up regularly saying like, hey, can I learn from you? Or, I've had a lot of people come to me and say like, people start by asking they want mentorship and then they just want a job, right? And that's not the value that you want to give. And so then we'll go back, then we'll figure all that out, and then we'll start to craft goals and figure out what our why is. Why do we actually want mentorship? And so with that, we'll probably hop into our first exercise for you all. So figuring out your why, it's kind of a difficult thing to do, right? Because especially if you don't know where to start or you don't know what to ask. So what I typically do is I actually figure out, I write it all down and put it into the framework of OKRs. And so starting with an objective and then figuring out the KRs from there. So this is actually the real thing that I'm looking to learn right now is my objective is to learn how to manage product managers effectively, because I want to get into product management. And so the first KR that I came up with is understanding how managing product managers differs from managing others. And then the other KR is to read 2 books on product leadership. Curtis needs a mentor to teach him OKRs. I could do that. So with that, we're gonna break you all out into buddy groups, and we're gonna give you 7 minutes. And so just for this exercise, write down 1 mentoring objective and then 2 key results that you hope to gain with your buddy.
So since we're recording, sometimes I like to give a little extra to those who listen to the recording. So we will be sharing the mind map afterwards, so stay tuned. We're going to pause the recording here briefly, but we'll come back on for the debrief because it's no fun watching blank screens. So
indeed.
All right. So I was able to pop in, I think, on almost all the groups, even though we had a very short window. But I'm curious, is there an objective you want to share, or maybe some clarifications or questions on what you talked about with your partner?
I would just ask, is there a difference between an objective and a goal? Because I mean, the platform I've been working with, you set goals for your mentoring relationship as you go forward, whether it's for this meeting or for a number of meetings that you're going to have. So it's goals that sort of get checked off. Is objective something higher level than that, or is that smaller level?
Yeah. So an objective is just I guess it's that classic. It depends, right? So it can be higher level. I mean, Google uses objectives and key results like at a company level, and then they work down from there. So an objective can be very high level. It can be very low level. But so one of the objectives that Beth and I came up with for her team in terms of being a mentor was to help her team feel confident in reaching out to stakeholders. And then so one of the key results from that we came up with was setting regular meetings every other week with some of those stakeholders. And then another key result was hopefully getting more stakeholders in those biweekly meetings. So does that answer your question?
Well, I guess we were answering it from the perspective as if we were a mentee.
If we were mentee, yeah.
And you
so it can work in reverse too.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah.
And usually, well, I'll add my 2 cents. OKRs are typically used for quarterly time span or half a year at most. And sometimes by introducing a format like this, it helps somebody who's maybe new to OKRs to also understand that format. So there's a little subtlety in using OKR as a framework here. But we are short on time, Aaron. We might.
Oh, all right. Yeah, let's keep going.
All right.
And you might need to reshare, Mark, the screen.
Oh, that would help, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Too many buttons.
There you go. There you go.
All right. So I think all right. So yeah, so this is more so a tactic. These are the tactics that I've used for my interviews as a mentee. And so what, I typically like to start out with, what problem am I trying to solve right now? And so, going further into that, like figuring out how my mentor or potential mentor, what's the biggest problem that they're struggling with and how they tried to solve it, or asking them how they tried to solve a similar problem to what I'm experiencing. I don't know if we have time for this next exercise, but one of the things that we can do is, if we're not sure of what to ask our mentor, we can reframe the OKRs, those key results that we just came up with in the first exercise, as questions. So you can see here, my first key result here was understand how managing product managers differs from managing others. My question then turns into, I understand that managing PMs is a different beast than managing other people, for X, Y, and Z reason that I may have researched outside of this meeting. What do you wish that you knew before you got into the management of other PMs? And then, going further with KR2, read 2 books on product leadership. If I'm really struggling to find books on product leadership, then what books would you recommend on product leadership is a classic question you could ask. The other question that you could ask, though, is, I read book X on product leadership, and I was wondering your thoughts on a certain concept in that book. And so that's a way that you can come up with certain questions to ask your mentor.
And
Aaron,
you had an
Aaron-
example, I think, on that last point that
Yeah,
you
go ahead.
recently used.
Yeah, I read Marty Kagan's Empowered, and so one of the things that he was talking about in that book was figuring out if a company is an actual product company, and his thoughts on if a company is a product company that you could learn from, was more so, if there are other people at that company from other product companies. And so I was curious, my new mentor, I was curious her thoughts on that concept. And she said, like, there are many other ways to figure that out. So yeah.
Mhm. So Marty Kagan doesn't know it all, is what you're saying.
I did not say that.
Oh, okay. Sorry. We can edit that out. Okay.
We can edit that out. Yep. So yeah, so going into connecting, if we have time at the end, I'd love to give a quick demo on LinkedIn, if people are curious. But I've used LinkedIn to find a lot of my previous mentors. But so connecting within your company is actually, much easier to do, because you have access to everybody's calendar, and my typical rule of thumb is, if I hear somebody's name 3 times and I've never met them before, I just put a 30-minute meeting on their calendar and say, hey, like, this is just a casual coffee chat. I just want to get to know a little bit more about you and what you do. And X, Y, and Z person has spoken your name and mentioned that you're a pretty well-known person throughout the organization. So would love to meet with you. And honestly, I've never been rejected for a meeting like this. So, and then another way to do it is same type of thing within your personal network. If somebody in your personal network is saying, like, hey, Curtis is a great guy to know, and this is actually what happened, right? This is how I got connected with Curtis. Is that my friend Tatiana said, Curtis is a great guy to know. He runs Product Tank down in Orlando. You should connect with him. And so just we met and things went from there. So
yeah, same thing with me. Is I saw Amy pop up on Lean Coffees 3 different times and said, okay, I got to meet Amy. She's apparently really into agile stuff. So
awesome.
Cool. So I've got to do a little bit of setup for my part. So why don't you go ahead and do the demo? I'll stop sharing.
Oh, okay, sure.
Because I want to see it too.
Okay, yeah. Curtis, could you allow me to share my screen?
Sure. Yep. 1 second. There you go.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. All right. Can you see, are you seeing LinkedIn right now or no?
Yes, and in dark mode too.
In a dark mode. Okay, great. So this is typically what I do if I'm trying to search for a mentor. I just go to search on LinkedIn. I click the enter button, and then so it does go back to what we were talking about originally, was figuring out those goals and what my actual goal is of getting mentorship, right? So right now I'm looking to get into either being a product lead or product director somewhere. And so what I would do is I would go to people, I would go to connections, second degree connections, and then go to all filters, and then I scroll down to title and look at product. I don't know, let's do director. Show results. And yeah, there you go. Like there are a ton of people who have a second degree connection with me, and I know Stephen Weinreich really well. I went to school with him, so I will add a note to Matt. I'm not going to do it right now, but so typically what I would do is I would just look at Matt's background and say, like, look at what he's doing, where he came from. So, pretty impressive background. And then I start to formulate the conversation that I would have in my head with him. Like, I see that he was a co-founder. I see that he was a product manager. He rose through the ranks to go to senior product manager. And now he's working as a product director here at Polywork. I don't know anything about Polywork, so I would probably do some research on that company before I reach out to him too. But yeah, so my message to him would probably be pretty simple. Just, hey, Matt, I see we both know Stephen. And I see that you're a product director at this company. I was wondering, like, if I could pick your brain a little bit about, going from that senior position, and then I see that you did a little bit of freelance work too. So how did you get into that product director role? And so let the conversation just go from there.
Nice. And if you join the Mind the Product Network, beautiful network there of its own, you can do exactly that technique. Search it and scour and find product people all over the world. My
Awesome.
plug for Mind the Product one more time. Yeah. I'm just curious how many people are comfortable doing that. I'm an extrovert on that end of the scale. I love meeting new people I don't know, and I'll just reach out and ask anybody for, hey, I'd love to meet you. But not everyone feels that comfortable. Just on like a Zoom chat poll in chat. Just curious, just really fast. How many of you feel like, oh, so comfortable with that technique, just reaching out to people who don't know and asking them for a meeting or time? And how many of you are like, yeah, not so much? Yeah, it's a mix.
Yeah.
It's, for me, it's great. I mean, that feeds me, right? Whoa, meeting new people.
Yeah.
I would say it's easier in LinkedIn. So
yeah, maybe that makes it easier. Yeah.
But well, let's move on and
All right.
let's talk about the mentor. So let me get my screen set up here. So let's talk about the mentor you're searching for. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. That's the wrong one. That's not the mentor you're searching for. So there's 3 key points, and I'm really curious, since there's several people here that mentioned they do some mentoring. I'd love for you to just jump in on audio or leave comments in chat, because we have a lot of experts in the audience, and I love that. The first thing that I find most important for me, and let me share that part of the screen. You got it? Okay.
I got it up. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Is understanding your why as the mentor. So it's not necessarily so you can, get a Padawan. It's more, how are you developing the next set of leaders? And this might be within your organization, or it could be outside of your organization. How are you growing your network? How are you helping people in your network kind of raise up in their capabilities and where they go? Because you might be able to leverage that later. So it's more for a mutual benefit idea. It's also important as a mentor to understand how you set expectations for yourself and for the mentee. So one of the things that I learned early on when I started my mentoring is understanding the different types of mentors that might exist, because somebody might be leveraging more than one mentor at a time. Ideally, you probably should do that in many cases. So of course, there's career mentors that help you plan your overall career, and this could be within your organization or outside. It could be a peer mentor, and this is somebody that just helps bring you into a new group or a new team. So I was telling Curtis as we were playing this, one of my favorite books on this is Teach What You Know by Steve Troutman. This book is well over 15 years old, but it still applies. And there's just, if you're bringing somebody new onto a team, that is a great book to kind of spread the mentorship across the whole team. So it's not just one person, especially if you're the one tapped to bring the person on board. Spread the joy. Spread the joy. Don't be the only one. And he's got a very easy process in that book. This is the book I wish I had written. I'll put it that way. So another one is leadership mentors. So these are the ones that are looking to get you to the next level. I suspect we have a couple in the audience. I'm just, giving an opportunity if you want to jump in. But it's really those who are, thank you for dropping the link there. It's really those that are helping you get to that next level, because maybe you're not thinking like an executive or a director, or in Aaron's examples earlier, he mentioned, how do I manage product managers? Maybe you've just been a product manager, but you've not managed others. How do you get that mindset? And then of course there's subject matter experts. How do I do this agile thing? Or how do I do this OKR thing? Or how do I get into the oil business or the entertainment business, or more specifically, video games? We have a few of those here in the Orlando area. So how do I find out more about that business? So these are all different kinds of mentors that you need to understand what kind of mentor you can be to the individual that approaches you. And you might talk about that with them. And you might also think about who's in your network that you might want to pull in later. Say, you know what, we've gone a certain point, but you're talking about this other industry. Let me pull in a subject matter mentor that can really help you learn more about that industry than I can. So moving on to the next piece is looking at what are some of the tactics as mentor. There are many. I'm just going to touch on two that I found most valuable, again, for setting expectations. So the first one is understanding how they learn now. Are they reading? Are they listening to podcasts? Are they listening to YouTube? Are they joining online groups or lovely groups like Product Tank? And no, Curtis did not pay me for that plug, but it's another example of how do they gather knowledge, or how do they share their knowledge as a way of learning as well? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So do you have that as a service? And with that, how do they want to grow? Because as a mentor, you should be willing to challenge. So how do they want to stretch? How do they want to be challenged? Where are they comfortable being poked? Because you don't want the mentor relationship to be in your face like that. So Reed told me to up my game for this talk, so I was being in your face. But you want it where you can push them in service to their growth and their learning, and not necessarily be intimidating the entire time. So I found that extremely valuable. Another thing more for the mentor, if we can go on to the rule of three. So this is a different rule of three than Aaron's rule of three, but I liked his too. So in this rule of three, there's often confusion between mentoring and coaching. So in coaching, you're relying on the knowledge, the strength, and the capability of the individual, of the coachee, not the mentee at this case, but the person wanting to explore new possibilities. So you're not really giving advice. A mentor, the big distinction is you're giving advice. But when you do that, always give 3 options at least. Because if you give them one option and it fails, guess whose fault it is? It's yours, the mentor. You get the blame. And they don't really learn from that situation. If you give 2 options, it's a dilemma for the mentee. Did they pick the right one? Did they pick the wrong one? So you've got this sort of good and bad difference, and they're like, oh my goodness, I'll never understand because I always pick the wrong one. No, it's just an option. So if you give them 3 options, they go, oh, there's multiple ways to do this. I think I have a 4th now that we're talking about 3 options. And I just thought of a 5th one. So if you give at least 3 options, it gives them the ownership of the decision and also exploring more things that they can explore. And
that is
yes,
brilliant. I love that rule of 3. I think we need a Mobius trigger card for that.
Yeah,
in the options category. Yeah, minimum.
I learned that from one of my mentors, Johanna Rothman, and Curtis, I know, knows Johanna. And Johanna learned it from her mentor. so it goes back a ways. So, I want to catch what Stephen said here. So I'm currently wrapping up a 6-month mentoring program with 2 executives at a company, includes sending them weekly content. Yeah. Become mentors to larger groups in the company. Yeah. So that's that's a great point, Stephen, is what if you're mentoring the mentors? How do you do that? So it's a combination of teaching and advice. Because Stephen, I'm guessing as part of your mentoring the mentors program, I'll bet you talk about mentoring style and how you use your particular style to mentor, because not everyone mentors the same. So was there anything you wanted to share on that, Stephen? I'll give you the stage for a minute if you'd like.
I'll just say, really, it's very heavy content. So I teach people around innovation and problem solving. And so I've been sort of mentoring them in that process. They bring me problems, we solve those problems, and then I teach them how they can solve problems with their teams. So they've been bringing back my tools to their smaller teams. And then in the next month, they're actually going to get a group of people that they're now going to have to mentor for the next 6 months using my process with their team. And we are talking about exactly how you do that whole process. So yes.
Yeah. So that's a great example of a subject matter expert. So, if you're looking for somebody in innovation, Stephen might be the mentor you're looking for. I'll just say that because I can. But thank you for that.
Real quick, if I could jump in. So Stephen, you also brought up a really good point here in that. So like what a lot of my mentors have done is send me content similar to this too. And it's super important if a mentor sends you content to actually read it and absorb it. Because if you don't, then why are you getting mentored? So
yeah. Well, and as part of that, if you as a mentor are sending content, at least for me, it kind of a variation of that rule of 3 is I don't necessarily tell them the points to take away. I ask them, so what did you get out of that? What did you take away from that? I see Stephen shaking his head too. And so it's getting him to not only to learn the key points, but learn how to learn in this new area, in this new subject matter. So there's different levels to it, but it's really just using questions and giving them options to explore. That's how I tend to look at it, and let them set their own experiments. Okay. And I actually have a blog post. It was supposed to be out today. It'll be out later today. It didn't make it this morning, but I'll talk a little bit more about that in the blog post. Because we are running short on time, and I want to respect your time.
And do we have one more activity? Do you want me to do breakouts again, or what do you want to do?
Well, we're kind of short on time and I
Okay.
have a couple more points. So let me
Sure,
just jump
sure,
to that. And because I want to give time for questions too. So the most important thing, and I'd love for some of our expert mentors to jump in on this one, is set some boundaries around the relationship. So how do you time box it? Do you go for 2 months? Do you go for 3 months? Do you go for 6 months? And do you say, okay, at the end of this time period, let's examine where we are and where you feel you need to go next as the mentee. It might be continuing with the same mentor. It might be me referring you to somebody else because you've decided, I need to go a slightly different path now. Is there somebody you can connect me with? And if not, Aaron showed you some great quick techniques on LinkedIn, which I hear can be used on Product Tank. Sorry, I gotta play with that. So, but your greatest resource are the people that are mentoring you now. They understand you, they understand where you're going, and so they can probably provide the more focused connections and hopefully make the introduction for you. So those warm introductions, always great to have. The other thing that I always do with my mentees is, as we get to the end of that time box, that time period, I'll provide homework for both of us. So we'll prep solo, but we'll come together to talk about the homework. And the homework is usually some sort of reflection. How did this mentorship work for you? What was not helpful so I can improve as a mentor? What was helpful? So as I look at other mentees down the road, or if this person comes back, I know what works for them. And so I'm really looking at how do I improve myself as a mentor, but also I'm asking a similar set of questions for them as the mentee, and letting them know, how can you use some of those techniques that Aaron talked about previously? How can you maybe use those a little bit better or a little bit differently so we have efficient use of my time and your time? Because part of that mentor-mentee relationship is mutual respect. So if you respect my time as a mentor, I definitely want to respect your time as a mentee. I'm not going to send you off on wild goose chases for assignments or anything like that. What I'm going to give you is something I think is valuable and worth your time. So, whew. Okay, wow, that was a lot. And I wanted to give some time for questions. But if you don't get your question today, this is how you can reach Aaron and myself. My book is not on mentoring, Aaron's is, but if you want to hear about more about remote work or distributed agile remote work, happy to talk to you about it through my book that's sometimes visible, sometimes not. And what questions do you have? Oh, I see comments too. All right.
Tom has a comment.
Yeah, a best practices do a mentoring agreement that is agreed upon almost at the beginning of the yes. Yeah, so having that mentoring agreement up front, these are some of the things that I will put in that mentoring agreement. So what is the time box? Also let them know that we're going to reflect at the end. So I set that expectation. I let them know what kind of, after we have sort of an introductory conversation about what kind of mentor I can be for them and who I might refer to them later, I might put some of that in the mentoring agreement, but it's usually one page. Don't make it complex. So, any other questions or any other great comments from our?
I'd love observations. If you've either mentored or been mentored and it didn't go well, tell us failure stories. We love failure stories at Product Tank, if you can share, or tell us really great experiences you had. Aaron Ermet's asking about product the scene and Jax. We'll talk to you offline on that one, Aaron. That's a good question. Beth says, thanks, Mark and Aaron. That's great.
Thank you, Beth.
I'm gonna ask my good friend Emma King a question. Emma, you know I do that. So you're out at Disney. They're they like mentoring and coaching and that kind of thing. Do they have any formalized programs out at Disney to make this kind of thing happen and mentoring, or do they just let it happen organically?
Yeah, they have these, they call them bergs.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really where I've seen it. Full disclosure, I've only been back 2 months.
Okay.
Don't know everything that's been happening as of when I returned, but that's what I see with these bergs that people put themselves out there as I'm this type of person. I'm happy to help with anybody who's looking for specific experience. And they've also got a lot of like Slack channels that are open for just informal reach out to wave your hand and say, hey, I'm trying to go here with my career. Is anybody, would you refer me to anybody to talk about it?
So as one of Emma's coworkers, who's been there a bit longer than 2 months, and thank you, Emma, so much for inviting me to this group. This has been amazing. I can say that Disney does have a formal mentorship program. It is a yearly sign up. You go in, they just started it last year, and you go in and you say, do I want to be a mentor, a mentee, or both? And you pick your, you basically pick your areas of expertise, whether it be communication or technology. It was mostly technology oriented because that's the area that Em and I are in. And you figure that out. And I was actually signed up to be a mentor for a very green software engineer who wanted to learn communication skills. And I've been a project manager for a very long time, new to product management. And they really have good tools that the leadership that started this actually sends out kind of memos every month saying like, hey, have you talked to your mentee lately? And they also make sure that the mentee is accountable for actually making those meetings to make sure that, like we're the ones giving you the information. I'm not going to bug you for it.
Right.
You need to come to us. So it really has been cool. Emma, I'm sorry, you joined like right after all that happened. And it was the first year, and it's really been a huge success. So just wanted to add that. But along with what Emma said, there are these communities of bergs of a lot of different talents and interests, and it really is organic as well. So
yeah, and so the questions come up a couple times now.
On you without telling you in advance.
No problem. You know me. I'll speak up.
Thanks, Jennifer. And the questions popped up a couple times. Is it birds or bergs or?
Oh.
BERG, and I can't remember what it stands for.
Oh, okay.
But it's basically it's interest groups basically.
Yeah, got it.
Right.
Got it.
Okay. Nice. Figured Disney would have a story. Thank you, Disney folks, for sharing.
Yeah, and Tom, I think Jennifer might have answered your question on how do they manage and deploy. It sounds very similar to one I developed for a small company that I was at the time. We were about 300 people, and a few of us were informally mentoring. So we said, why don't we make this a little bit more formal? So we had a sort of a bit of a matching system, and so very similar, but not anywhere to Disney scale. On Excel spreadsheet. It could be. So there was an interesting point that I think it was Jennifer, I don't know if it's Jennifer or Emma mentioned about, is the mentee engaging? So that's an interesting question, whether your mentor relationship is within your organization or outside your organization. So if it's outside, is it a relationship based on mutual support, and what happens if the mentee drops out, or is it a paid mentorship? Because I've seen those as well. So that brings in a whole other set of questions, which we probably don't have time for, but happy to answer on the meetup site, or if you want to reach out to me or Aaron later.
By the way, I was mentioning that the Excel spreadsheet is sort of the next step after you do it from a perspective of crazy, just free for all. And then people somebody tries to keep track of who is talking to who and if anything's working and achieving their goals. But that's just so difficult to ever do once you get over like 10 people.
Yep.
So having a platform that really enables you to communicate and put your goals and your mentoring agreements in a place that actually can be shared. And you just, a place like Disney, there's no way you could do it on an Excel spreadsheet. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. And there are, I would say, easily hundreds of such solutions. There are some very structured ones, and then I know there's some built on top of Airtable and Notion and all these other cool new apps that have come out that, they work at various levels. It depends on what you need.
Yeah, and I think there's ones that have evolved and ones that haven't. So
yep.
I mean, I think Mentor City has evolved because I'm the one that keeps pushing them to evolve. So, and they do. So
yeah, if it's a tool you rely on, you're like, come on, fix this.
Yeah.
Put this feature in.
Yep.
I'm wondering if either of you, and last question for either Mark, Aaron, or anybody here, how often do you think Slack spaces are well used as mentoring platforms? Because there's so much you could do there. You could find the person, you could quickly direct message them. How well do you think people are using Slack these days for mentoring in particular?
So I'll jump in here first. It depends on the size of the mentoring community, and if you have I would say somebody who's either a dedicated paid or volunteer community manager, because just managing Slack, especially if it grows.
Yeah.
And I know Product Tank has a huge Slack community. I had to get off of it for a while because it was just too much for me. It was like, whoa, too much. But to be able to have people that come in looking for offering mentoring or offering menteeship, and having structured ways to get them in the right Slack channels, get them interacting, maybe have some online meet and greets where they can talk to mentors, not just talk through Slack, but can I actually meet? Because it's also a trust relationship.
Right.
So you want to see more than text. You want to see the face. You want to know the person.
And Curtis, I just add that I know Mentor City has clients that are leveraging off Slack with their platform. So it's actually an integrated solution with Slack. So I think Slack sort of gets you past the Excel spreadsheet version, but still, it's still a free for all.
Nice.
And if you're okay with free for alls, then that's fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's where it comes from.
Thank you. I know we're right at time. Tom, put Mentor City, the link to it in our chat, if you wouldn't mind. It'll be captured there. Any other platforms? Thank you all so much. Reed, final words from Product Tank. How about a round of applause for our presenters, Aaron and Mark? Thank you.
Thank you.
Nicely done.
Thank you very
Thanks,
much.
guys.
Yeah.
Great
Thank you,
feedback.
Reed, for challenging me. So
Very welcome. Great job, Obi-Wan.
All right. Thank you all. See you next month or sometime soon.
Yeah. Good
see ya.
stuff.
Excellent.